Let me see. Kaitlan sent me her bio. My Lord, it was 2 pages long, 2 or 3 pages long. I said, Caitlin, I don't think I have time to introduce you like that. So you know what I'm going to do? What I'm going to do is let her tell you who she is, and that way it's coming right from her, and she knows what's important to let you know about. Thank you, Kaitlan. Kaitlan Ross.
So before I go to the microphone, can everyone hear me without the microphone? Okay, I'm going to set this down.
Go over there. Yeah.
So just real quick, and I appreciate all of the local officials introducing themselves, but before I introduce myself so I understand who I'm speaking with, I noticed we have a lot of local officials, which is great. Do we have any farmers and ranchers out here?
Oh, yeah.
All right, anyone involved in local emergency services, firefighters, volunteer firefighters, anyone in that area? All right, anyone familiar with the term NIMBY? Which, not in my backyard. Not in my backyard. So I fall under all 3 of those categories. I recently made a push for RPT chair and vice chair. It was kind of derailed by some local emergencies that came up, and I wasn't able to make the convention. But I have spent over 20 years in life safety, emergency preparedness, emergency response, from a volunteer firefighter all the way to a career firefighter and industrial rescuer, and then on to EHS consulting. I would ask everyone to set their steak knives down for this next piece. The last 5 years I've built data centers. I have built data centers all across the globe for some of the biggest and best data center owners and operators that there are in the globe, but not in my backyard. In these communities in Cheyenne and Virginia and Washington, where they want this development and they want this growth, we have gone into communities and we've helped build and support these communities, identifying what their needs are and what the community wants out of that relationship and that partnership. We've done that in Texas as well. And so the concern that I have been seeing here in local communities and in rural Texas is that we are dealing with a targeted push toward very rural counties that do not have the support systems in place for the proper permitting, regulating, and oversight of these facilities. And this isn't coming in by the big builders, not all the time. Most of this is coming in by very small predatory companies who identify counties like Mills County, Lampasas County, potentially Coryell Hill, and they realize that there's this gap in regulation, there's this gap in building codes, and there's this gap in oversight. So they want to sneak in and get grandfathered in before everyone speeds up to the regulations that need to go into place. Quite a bit of the work that I've done has been covered under NDAs, but I have been publicly employed as an EHS manager for quite a few of these companies, so I can kind of speak to those things. Who knows the different types of data centers that we're dealing with? Okay. So I know in Coryell County, after speaking with one of your commissioners just before this meeting, y'all have development happening out on the base. Now that falls under a critical infrastructure umbrella, and there are quite a few data centers, and some of which I've worked on across the United States, that do fall under those DoD regulations. They do fall under critical infrastructure. They run hospitals, they run local governments, they run military operations. Those are very difficult to get stopped, right? Because those are critical infrastructure projects. They operate the same way as a high power utility line coming through. So it's very hard to stop or delay those. However, you can regulate that construction. What we're seeing, I guess let me back up real quick. I'm your neighbor. I have a ranch that sits on the corner of Mills, Lampasas, and Hamilton counties. It sits right on the corner of it. I'm in all 3 jurisdictions. which makes everything a nightmare whenever I have to engage local government, because I'm dealing with 3 different jurisdictions. If I have a problem, it's one of the other county's problems. If I want to help, everybody likes having me. But I am y'all's neighbor over here. Molding, Texas is where I live. Tiny little town. We have about 16 people over there. Goldthwait is the city that claims me most of the time. Lampasas is the one that doesn't like dealing with my problems. But Mills County was targeted in the last few years with BESS units, with solar farms, and with potential data centers. We stopped all 3 of those pushes. We have new companies coming in now because we haven't set up the local regulations, and this is something in a town hall discussion in Goldthwait I discussed with our local government and let them know, as long as we don't have local regulations in place, we're going to keep seeing these things come in because they see us as a target. Now, thankfully, I'm a safety manager, and I was able to speak up and start bringing questions to these companies. We forced them into a town hall meeting where they started realizing that they are going to have a safety manager breathing down their neck for every single issue that was coming up. We asked the company if they were going to make sure they had dust remediation plans, right? If there is dust on their construction project coming over the fence line, that's an issue, and we're going to report it. If their noise levels exceed OSHA thresholds, that's an issue. We're going to report it. If they don't have SWIP plans in place, that's an issue. We're going to report it. Most of these companies who are acting in very shady ways are coming into these companies, or coming into these counties and these jurisdictions, hoping that nobody catches these things. And yes, ma'am.
And how do you get that initiated when your city council is a party of 6 having closed door meetings?
Open Meetings Act.
So you have to request from them they've already done this behind closed doors, and they said, hey, we have now set a proposal, and we are going to go forward with this. And so
I've seen that in quite a few counties. I'm actually doing a case study down in Matagorda County right now, who is refusing to put detailed items on the agenda, who are not allowing true public discussion, and they're doing this under a very thin exception that allows for
business,
the county and the city to attract and talk about business and talk about incentives, but they're not allowed to move that into executive session and block public interface after those initial discussions are had. When it comes to all the abatements and it comes to continuing those processes, they're not allowed to keep that in closed session, and we do have challenges going up for that in the open meeting, or under the Open Meetings Act, to make sure that all of the details are coming out. Some of the NDAs that I've seen coming from these unscrupulous companies are so broad that they verge on negligence for the commissioners who are signing these agreements. One that I reviewed 2 days ago removed the county's sovereignty and their immunity if anyone spoke about environmental health, safety hazards, any inspection that occurred on that facility, any spills, incidents, emergency responses, anything about that community at all, or even discussing the fact that every member of that county is now under an NDA, was banned under this NDA. And a non-disclosure agreement.
what county was that?
Matagorda County.
Jeez.
Very, very much. I had a 2.5-hour long conversation yesterday with their economic development board where they were not aware that they were under this gag order.
Which didn't have to sign.
They did sign it, they just didn't read it.
They didn't sign.
They didn't read it. He told me that he had signed hundreds of these things and they're all the same. And I said, no, sir, they are not. And I sent it over to him. We had to go through a Public Information Act request just to get this NDA.
Through the county commissioners, correct?
So in Matagorda County, we have to go through the county attorney's office for all public information requests. And then we were able to get that NDA, and we are now seeking all of the underlying documents between this company This all started because the economic board brought in this company in 2018 called Environmental Fluids. Sounds great, sounds warm and fuzzy, right? That they're green, they're gonna have green solutions. In 2018, the county helped them get their permitting, get their SWIPs in place, set them up with consultants to make sure everything went smooth, got them in. In 2023, they had the first incident with OSHA. It resulted in 6 violations because they were not just using green chemicals, they were using very, very caustic and volatile chemicals, including a component of sarin gas, a nerve agent in their chemical manufacturing. The only reason that this came to light was in May of this year. The sarin gas component, it's called thiol chloride. Thiol chloride was left outside in a corroded container. A rainstorm came through, hit it, it started off-gassing. A neighbor noticed the off-gassing, called an emergency response, and they found that their facility had been completely abandoned after the OSHA violations. And they did not clean up any of their hazardous materials, they did not clean up any of their waste. They locked the gate and fled to Arizona.
To do it again?
To do it again. And so that kind of started my personal investigation. Now I have different bones to pick with Matagorda County. Anyone who follows me on social media is very well aware I have different bones to pick with Matagorda County. However, this one falls back to the emergency planning, the permitting processes, and the regulatory compliance that is needed by these local governments before you move the hazard into your county. They don't have any of this. In Matagorda County, they have a nuclear power plant. They have 3 chemical facilities. They have 2 oil and gas facilities. They have a plastics manufacturer. All of this on a bay and estuary that's protected. They don't have an emergency action plan. They don't have bonding for these companies that say, if you come into our county and then get in trouble, lock the gate and leave, we have to clean it up. Where's that money coming from? They're sitting on $1 million fine that is not being covered, or I'm sorry, not fine, $1 million disposal cost that is not being covered by the EPA, because the EPA had to come into this site as well. They have now designated it as a Sera 3 Superfund site. Literally created a chemical wasteland, and not one commissioner, not one county official knew the hazards that they were inviting into their county. That same thing can happen with East Best centers. That same thing can happen with the data centers. That same thing can happen with the solar farms. If a solar farm is coming in and they're building out 3,000 acres of solar farm, and we've got that lovely springtime gorilla hail that loves coming through our area, who is going to do the remediation and the cleanup of that farm when all of those panels get destroyed? How about a tornado? Are they going to lock the gate and walk away and take the insurance claim on their loss while leaving the county to clean up the mess? When it comes to the best units and things, there are certain standards that are starting to be accepted industry-wide. Certain batteries and components that if you are moving toward excellence in the industry, you don't use these batteries and components because they have known issues. They have known issues with thermal runaway and conflagration. Right? Catching on fire to a point you can't put it out. It's a surround and drown kind of situation. But when you're dealing with lithium-ion battery fires, you also have all of the hazards that your emergency responders are going to be facing in coming to that site if it's on fire or not. A lot of the volunteer firefighters don't have the training and don't understand those hazards. Now, one of the legislative efforts that we got pushed last year under the Utilities Code does give commissioners and the state fire marshal the ability to hire in third-party experts in BESS, in solar, this one specifically for BESS. Gives them the ability to hire in a third-party expert to come in and inspect and review and make sure that these units are being built to fire code, being built to, or being using UL-listed components, right, tested components, and allows for your fire marshals to penalize and fine these companies if they are building improperly. And that was a really good push, but then they only made it applicable after 27, January 1st, 2027. Now it's in place now, but it won't be applicable till then. So what we're going to see in this gap is we're going to see a lot of companies pushing in to try to build these BESS units before they have to do their inspections. What happens to those BESS units that don't pass the inspections in January of 2027? Are the well, they can't be grandfathered against the penalizations. So once these inspections start, they won't be grandfathered in under those issues. And if that doesn't pass, that will be shut down. Who does the cleanup? And so we're seeing some big gaps. Yes, sir.
There's one other trick that they like to put. There's a big, I came originally from the Northeast area, and up in northern New York, they just took several hundred acres of wetland where the geese fly in, they make little geese and they go on. Anyways, they're gonna put in a big solar farm there, which is gonna exclude because the geese don't take off and land like this.
Right.
They take off and land, so they need a lot of open area. And they, in their contract, when they pull out of there, they only are responsible to reclaim and put back into original form the top 3 feet of earth. Well, think of a solar array as an umbrella. Well, you don't just poke it in the ground 2 feet, it doesn't hold. So they make this immense concrete base, and now that's below 3 feet, they don't have to take that out when they leave. So they're leaving thousands of these concrete blocks behind when they get done.
Yep.
And it's even worse with the solar, with the wind turbines. Those are like 50, 60 feet down, and they're like 30 by 30. I mean, you don't stick a pole that big up in the air and in the wind and make it steady without having a lot of concrete underneath it.
Yeah. They came to our ranch on those wind turbines and asked us to allow them to build, and we were very firm in saying no, and colorful language when needed. But we do sit atop of a hill. I can see all of Highway 84 from where I sit, and City of Star and the dairies and whatnot, and I can only see about 6 lights from my house from all of my childhood. This is my grandfather's ranch that I've taken over operation on. My entire horizon is now red flashing lights on 3/4 of my horizon. So I absolutely understand the frustrations with those units as well. When they moved them down one side, they put them up on this hill and started popping into springs that ran up that hill that we knew about as kids. We went and explored and whatnot. But bringing the 18-wheelers up, they started popping into those springs and creating creeks coming down the side of the hills. And ended up setting half of our county on fire because of bad safety practices in welding gates up. But yeah, no, there's a lot of different hazards that come in with these industries, and there's not a whole lot of pre-planning that's happening on the front end on what happens in the worst case scenario, what happens when it doesn't work, who's going to be footing the bill, who's cleaning it up. Now for roads, we have bonds available at a local level. You can issue road bonds and make a heavy construction company come in and rebuild your roads if they tear it up, but what about when they tear up the land? There are ways that you can push through. Do y'all have a local fire marshal in y'all on this? No? No fire marshal. Do y'all have ESDs? Are y'all familiar with emergency service districts or ESDs? Okay.
What, can you back up for just a second? I'm
Yes,
sorry. Was it a House bill or a Senate bill as far as that fire marshal or third party inspection? 'Cause I need to look that up. And
Yes,
I don't-
let me give you the number.
And I don't want, I can get it at the end, it's fine, I just, I wanna make sure I have it.
Let me, so it's gonna be under Utilities Code, Title 4, subsection B,
Okay.
Chapter 187, and it's labeled Battery Energy Storage Facility Safety.
Gotcha.
We done all that.
Best safety.
Thank you.
Excuse me,
Yes, ma'am.
what are the different data centers and why do we need so freaking many of them?
That's a great question. So you, and that's where I started off, and I do apologize, I tend to trail and rabbit hole. You have critical infrastructure projects. Those are the ones running your government, your military, your critical needs. We need these to operate society with the new Internet of Things that we have all grown accustomed to and reliable to. Then you have personal use co-location. That's where you start seeing like Facebook. You know, Facebook, some people might argue is a critical infrastructure. It's not. But then the ones that I focus on heavily are the crypto miners. The crypto miners are small companies that are coming in. They do not regularly have any ties to the local area in which they are building. They are literally there just to make a buck. They're going to draw on your utilities. They're going to become a very large consumer, which we have seen ends up knocking off those different programs that allow for non-peak use. Right? If you have a large consumer coming in that's only operating in the non-peak use hours, which is what they do, then you don't end up with non-peak times down the road. So they're coming in and buying the energy at the lowest rate that they can, which eventually curves out and creates a new bottom layer or a new bottom rate for all of the energy users. You have, let's see, those are the big three. You have co-locators, you have actual critical infrastructure, and you've got a lot of crypto miners coming in. Now, for those different types of data centers, you have all kinds of different build-out types, right? Water is a big issue. Well, data centers knew about that water issue a few years ago. So they started doing recirculation, they started doing submersive cooling, they started trying to look at ways to reduce water loads and reduce water use. Not all of them have caught up yet. And a lot of them are grandfathered in, right? You can't take a high water use data center and then tell them, hey, you need to change this and reduce your usage. That part is grandfathered in. So I've noticed the data center topic revolves a lot around that water use, but what I would like to get across is that issue, they are actively attacking, and it is easier to go pick different topics and essentially stand up and say, hey, I'm going to be a NIMBY, right? Not in my backyard. I don't care how you're building it. I don't care what water saving method you're doing. I don't care. If I don't want a data center in my backyard, I'm going to fight tooth and nail and make sure you're not building on my fence line. Go build somewhere else where they want you over there, but not on my ranch, right? Chasing the issue just through that water, I don't think is going to be beneficial long term. And I think there are better ways to locally regulate it and regulate it at the state level versus focusing on that water use issue. On the local level, if y'all do push for a fire marshal, he would have the most authority to create local regulations that can either stop or regulate these industries coming in. A lot of counties who don't have fire marshals already can either, some are looking at creating ESDs in order to fund that, which will also create an authority having jurisdiction, which allows for the sales tax happening around these industries to be funneled over into your emergency responders, the ones who are going to have to respond to these hazards that are being brought in. So there are some benefits to ESDs and fire marshals because you can control things at a local level. Personally, I'm going to take this to the state level this next legislative session, I'm gonna take forward a bill, and I would love to talk to Pete Flores and any of our rep offices. And I know some people took it to convention with them a few weeks back, but we're gonna be pushing for a rural shield and creating an authority having jurisdiction at the Texas level through the Texas Railroad Commission. Because what we're dealing with in data centers and high energy use industries is the exact same thing we dealt with in oil and gas at the turn of the century. Is anyone familiar with the term wildcatter? That is what we're dealing with, is we're dealing with wildcatters in a different industry, and we do not have a jurisdiction that covers statewide that prevents these wildcatters from coming into our tiny rural communities and taking advantage of lack of knowledge, lack of expertise, lack of regulation, lack of oversight, lack of offices that are capable of looking at their health and safety codes, looking at their regulatory obligations. So we're hoping to push that through the Texas Railroad Commission, and then if need be, shake up the Texas Railroad Commission to make them actually do their jobs. They're having a lot of issues out in West Texas right now with the result of the last wildcatting boom, with abandoned wells and orphaned wells springing back to life across West Texas because they didn't have this oversight early on when they first hit their oil and gas boom at the turn of the century last go around. Any questions so far?
Do you know what type data centers coming in at Fort Hood?
If it's going on Fort Hood, that is going to be classified as a critical infrastructure facility. So again, you probably can't stop that development, but you can be a pain in their tail. You can make sure that they mind their P's and Q's, that every single rule is followed. Again, two of the easiest ones for any lay person. I think we had someone, who is it, you have a development coming into?
Yes, 2 miles away, and in the contract that they've got, so we also live right next to SpaceX, which is,
Yep.
we got the dumping noise.
Yeah.
And so they're gonna build this data center right next to SpaceX. Well, they're only gonna put the sound monitors on the east and one north side, so 3 total sound monitors. And their noise
That's been a pain in the
limit,
butt.
yes, their noise limit is at the perimeter of their 500 acres, right? I tested a SpaceX rocket test at our house, and it was at just below their sound limit. But of course, we're on the side that doesn't have monitors, so what are they gonna do? They're gonna build all the facilities over on the side that they're not gonna monitor because the city's to the east, right? And I already see this coming, and so this is where I'm gonna be the biggest pain in the ass. I'm gonna be the hemorrhoid and the tick on the hemorrhoid.
Just.
You know, SpaceX, our windows vibrate over
Yes, they
here.
do.
I mean, yeah, we're not even that close.
Right, yeah, and they've done remediation, but now they're going over their water usage. They're using 169 million gallons of water
Wow.
per year. And they've done noise remediation, and so it's better, but now they're gonna stick this data center right there. And, I mean, it's, you know, we're like,
And that, so
that's why I'm trying to find out these little back, water isn't gonna do it.
dust,
Dust, yeah,
endangered animals,
yeah.
horny toads.
We don't have horny toads. I'm gonna buy some.
Oh,
Are
don't
you
start
sure?
Don't start doing that.
Eagles. Eagles are a big one. Eagles delayed a $3 billion project in San Antonio for 4.5 years.
Cool. Like it, okay.
And moratoriums, right? I know a lot of people are nervous about moratoriums because different counties in Texas have applied them improperly. Right? They try to come in and say, we want a moratorium forever against everything. We're out. And you can use it in limited. If you say, hey, I need a 1-year moratorium so that we can go in and adopt fire codes for this new hazard and get a fire marshal or create an ESD so we have building codes. Not necessarily building codes over everyone in the county, but you can identify special hazard construction types, high energy use, high energy throughput, so that you're not picking on one particular type of commercial entity. You're covering your buses, your solars, and your data centers under a high energy use, high hazard umbrella, and saying for these industries, we want this permitting in place, we want this kind of oversight, we want this kind of surcharge or tax allocated to this special energy or special hazard sector so that we can support our local emergency response for the hazards that this company is bringing into our area. And those are things that the commissioners or any approval body can ask for in those closed door meetings when a company is coming in and trying to decide whether or not they want to build there. That's when you talk about the give and take. It shouldn't just be all take on the company side, it should be a give and take. For example, are y'all familiar with Samsung? So I got to go bid that project. I was one of 3 companies in the United States asked to go bid that safety project to cover all of their environmental health and safety through the construction phase. It was the largest construction site in this hemisphere when it started. Big boy. Before we ever got that contract, their team went to Taylor and they went to the county and they said, hey, so we want to build this really big, cool chip manufacturer here in Yalls County. In exchange, we're going to make sure a percentage of all of our employees are your local people, your local employees. We're going to buy you new fire stations. We're going to shove this amount of money into your school districts and create trade school training specifically for this industry so that your high school kids can come out and step into a 6-figure job.
And Temple College.
What's that?
And Temple College.
And typical, yeah. They came in with their wallets open and said, what would you like for us to come here? And that's what the big companies do. That's why you see these data center hubs, right, in Phoenix and Manassas and Quincy, Washington, Cheyenne, Wyoming. You see these big hubs happening because the big companies that do want to come in and they do want to build out these large facilities, they come in with their hat in hand going, what can we do for your community so that we can help y'all and be good neighbors? And so it's a very big difference versus the crypto miners who come in and say, here's an NDA, y'all don't talk about anything that we're talking about. Don't tell anybody that we're talking about coming in because we don't want everyone looking at all the facilities we've burned down in other states. So let's be real quiet and then we're just going to spring up overnight. And we're not going to do anything for your county. And at the same time, when we get in enough trouble, we're just going to lock the gate, leave, and y'all can clean up the mess. Very big difference in approach. And that's where I kind of speak to both sides of the issue. I can speak from an emergency responder point of view, from the data center and the owner's perspective, and from local, concerned citizen and community input side. And I'm not completely against data centers. I'm not completely for data centers. I think they should go in where they're wanted. I think they should be regulated. And I think you should have heavy community involvement every step of the way. I've seen it work well. I have been one of the EHS managers who has had to stand up to a crowd of 500 people who are very angry about the company I represent coming into that town and answer all of the questions for them and turn the tide where they're actually happy about it, and tell them what all the possibilities are. I don't represent shady companies, I don't put lipstick on a pig, and I never would. And so all those crypto miners and the kind of dirty guys, I won't play with them and I don't want them in my backyard. So I can absolutely understand why you wouldn't either. Any questions? Anything so far?
Did you cover the sound issue, the fans going 24/7, and people getting ill from that, and from infrasound that we don't hear?
Yeah, so that sound is one of the big compliance areas that you can hold them accountable for, and it's going to be dependent on what decibel amount it is, how often it is, and that span of time. So a lower level sound that is on all the time can cause just as much hearing damage as a rocket testing that lasts 15 minutes but at a much higher decibel. So there are dosimeter apps that you can put on your phone, and they're completely free. And if it will tell you what range you're in, whether it's a 15-minute range or a 4-hour or 8-hour, and if you cross over those range, pick up the phone, call OSHA.
And on the federal land, there are endangered bird species on Fort Hood.
Yep.
When they are coming in to nest on Fort Hood, all construction stops, all training stops, they're firing in these areas. The fire department cannot even go into that area to extinguish a fire. It has to be done from the air. That's how wild they are about these birds. I don't know if that would be a way to, you know, the noise from the, I don't know, Fort Hood's a huge place, so maybe they're gonna build the center far enough away from it that that's not, but that might be an angle to look at.
Absolutely, and they should be releasing exactly where they're gonna be building that. Because they're on the base, they do have a little bit more secrecy, right? You can't hit them with open records requests and open meetings requests, it's hard. But you should be able to identify where they're building that. If that's in a protected area, then they would fall under those rules. Light pollution, light affects birds and bird migration. The sound absolutely does. And cycling of gens, right? So you have a steady sound that affects them, but you also have a sound rules for irregular noises, right? If you're doing a generator test every week, however loud that can be, that needs to go over into that regulatory bucket as well on whether or not Ducks Unlimited is a great company on protecting bird and migratory patterns. They usually get involved, but they'll know those sound thresholds and all the little rules as far as making sure our migratory birds aren't being disturbed at all.
Do they have to have transmission lines near on these data centers?
So they have, we have a new toy coming out that's going to greatly reduce the need for those transmission lines, and that's our portable nuclear reactors. Some of those are being deployed in Texas already, and it is likely going to be more prevalent in the years coming, and that's going to reduce the need for them building near or by those transmission lines.
Is there a panhandle that uses those?
They're looking at, there's none active at the
Not yet.
moment, but they're
Proposed.
proposed and they're looking at it.
Now, I realize they like to call them portable nuclear reactors, but there's not much portable about them. But in any case,
They're
my
pretty
point-
small.
Yeah, they're pretty small, but it's not like, it's not gonna fit on a trailer that you're gonna bring down a regular road.
I like the term modular.
They're,
Yes,
yes, modular.
Yeah. My point is that they're gonna use an incredible amount of water.
Yes.
This area, I only moved into this area about 5 to 6 years ago, and in this area, I think 5 of the last 6 years, at some point in time, we were in a drought condition. So you bring in a nuclear reactor that's gotta have, for some insane reason, they decide that the hot steam coming back shouldn't be rewarmed and used to drive a turbine. They should condense that to water and then remix the steam. Sounds kind of stupid to me, but whatever.
I should have brought my other half. So my other half is a Navy nuke, and he also does commissioning for that company up in Abilene. He's on the forefront of these modular nuclear reactors, and he's a glow bug, so he loves them. He can't speak to the company's standpoint, but he is happy to talk about the pros and cons, both sides of it, because again, we sit on the same page. We'll go build this stuff anywhere else, not here. If y'all want it on your ranch, that's fine, not on my ranch. But he happily go into depth on those nuclear modular reactor or modular nuclear reactors that they are bringing into this industry, and what kind of specs he's seen so far that are public. Not all of them can be talked about. Again, there's a lot of NDAs and things in place, and he can't represent the company that he works for in discussing it, but they are very open to allowing him to speak and educate the public on it. So,
When these centers are looking for where they're going to light and build, the tax package that is offered to them, is that like, number one, let's get this tax package and then go into it? Or do they go to the county that offers them the best package? They don't know.
it depends on the company. So you have kind of like your Big Ten, right? Now I'll say your Big Ten are going to be along the lines of like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Iron Mountain, even Meta, which is Facebook. They all operate under kind of a different structure than the wildcatters, as I call them. The wildcatters are absolutely coming in and looking for the tax abatements and the deals and lack of regulation to go in and go. The big guys, if they showed up in a county that said, we don't have a building permit office, you don't have to supply anything, they'd still be like, no, I promise, I do, you have to take this, give it to your mayor, I don't know who, but I know legally I'm required to give you this, so y'all take this. They're not as aggressive with the tax packages because they generate so much money that it doesn't really matter. And that's why they're willing to come into communities and say, what do y'all want? What do you need? Do you need a new fire station? Do you need a new school? Do you need a new hospital? What do y'all want to allow us to come in and build? And so they're not the ones real hungry off of those tax abatements. It's your more unscrupulous companies that are. Do y'all know how much data centers generate just while we're talking about taxes? No?
Generating power or?
No, generate as far as money, sales,
Tax revenue.
tax revenue. Say that again?
Billions.
Billions. Billions.
But that kind of depends on the deal that you give them going in too. Because there's
They
others,
make so
there's
much-
others that have like a 3 or 5 or 10 year moratorium on their taxes in full. They don't pay any taxes.
Absolutely.
They're
The
not-
wind turbines are just the same, and the solar
Yeah.
farms and the BESS units are just the same. Some of them are coming in asking for those abatements. The big guys, even on their small campuses, the reason that they are so adamant about zero downtime and things, one campus I know of in San Antonio, not their biggest campus, relatively small one, generates $156,000 a minute. $156,000 a minute. That's just one of their campuses. If they're coming in under critical infrastructure and they have their contracts in place and they are a high capacity operating company, they don't care about the tax abatements because they are willing to dig into very deep pockets and give y'all whatever you want in order to come in.
So you're saying these wildcatters are looking for weak counties that do not have what they need to stop them?
To
The
regulate.
safety, the fire, and all that.
Correct.
They're looking for the weak people.
Correct.
They're taking them over.
Unregulated.
Yeah.
Unregulated. And they want to find commissioners who know that they don't have to give them tax abatements. They want to find fire marshals or lack of fire marshals, lack of fire codes, lack of local permitting offices, any kind of regulation where they would be subject to inspection from the outside. If they're an unscrupulous company, they're looking for those little bitty rural counties that don't have that oversight capability.
Don't know better. What you said in the very beginning of this whole thing was, truthfully, we need to push our state representatives, put something on a bill statewide that says that they have to meet certain criteria to put anything in the state, period.
Correct.
You still have to
That's
worry
sort of
about your
Tex-
local
Texas
people
and Texas.
knowing all these laws and everything else and try to deal with people who've got attorneys on hand that they pay millions of dollars every year
Absolutely.
to try to screw you over. So if you get it done on a state level, then they don't have that advantage to be able to try to come in and do that.
Correct.
What can we do in
And
the
However,
interim
the
of getting the
state
state
party-
passed?
Well,
See, we're
it
in a
doesn't, it
gap
doesn't, if
here.
you push hard enough, it doesn't take very long to get something like that done.
However, our state party, if I'm correct, wants to limit the legislature and have more local control. And we as a party say that, and then we go ding our legislatures for doing exactly what we wanted. And we can't do that. We can't be fighting our legislators on this. We have to
Well,
work
we
with
can fight
them.
some of them.
we have to fight this could all really be summed
Mr.
up.
Spillers hates my guts.
This can all be summed up as everywhere, anywhere, whatever industry, you have the good, the bad, the ugly. And the ugly is looking for the weak, the weakest link, and they're gonna go after it, and they're predatory practices. And so, you know, you have to work with your local county, you have to work with your city, because a lot of people don't understand that when the county puts a moratorium on data centers, that only affects the county, not the cities within the county. Yeah. Am I correct?
You're correct. You gotta understand that the city is your extension. The county is a subdivision of the state.
Right.
So the county can only do what the state allows you to do.
And the counties operate as the state in your county.
Right.
And
These
so,
permits are
why in
issued
our
by the
city
state,
it
is that not
isn't-
correct? Permits for these facilities?
Some of them,
Yeah.
but that's
Depends on
the,
the.
but,
that's the big gap
Depends on
that
the
we're
municipality.
dealing with.
and there are some things like the county can do, and y'all talk about the tax abatements, we're concerned about the tax abatements, but when they put that on there, that gives them a little more strength in regulating and being involved in what those organizations, whether it's wind power, solar, or if it's a data center. So be sure that you get the full story on why they're doing what they're doing. Because again, we want to jump all over them because it doesn't look like ESDs is another case where that's another form of government, another level of government. That's what we don't want typically. However, in some cases, it's really, really a good thing, like the Central Texas Water Alliance. Our senator took a ding as being too liberal because he supported another level of government. However, what that really did was give us, the local people, more control over the water and our access to that water, rather than leaving it to Brazos River Authority and other entities like Georgetown to take our water away from us.
But
Yes.
I think everybody needs to remember though, like back in 2012 or whatever year, all the aerospace was given carte blanche across the state of Texas. We cannot hold anybody in an aerospace industry liable for damages caused to our facilities because it is written in the state code that they are not liable for damages
Wow.
to private.
Like COVID rules.
Well,
I mean,
and
but
there are
this was a state, they wanted to bring in the business,
Mhm.
right? And they got the business, and the residents are the ones paying the price. And that's where the representation, you said there are more cows than people in certain districts. Those of us who live in areas with more cows than people want that representation. I don't have representation on my city council because I live out in the county. And I'm gonna be the one paying the price, right? So you gotta have some kind of a level playing field somewhere.
Totally understand. I live in a community in which we're part of a larger school district, which we can vote for that school district. However, half of it, another city, is in that school district. And that's where all their expansion has been over the last 20 years. And who's paying for all those new schools?
Everybody's- you are.
I am.
Right.
And I cannot vote those city people out that are creating that growth in our school district.
Right.
I know that feeling.
Yeah.
I pay taxes to all 3 counties.
Right.
And then I am
Exactly.
limited
But-
on where I can vote for a school board over here, I can vote for local officials over here. Depending on what I'm running on, I can't run for any of them if I'm gonna criticize their local government. So,
Well, and that is where we have to work together on all of that, because in that example I just gave you with that, I'm friends with everybody on that city council, and I talk to them about that, and I'm telling them, this is my concern, and you're making decisions that I have that impact
No
me.
control, yeah,
Right.
you have no control.
And, they don't have any liability to me, they don't have to respond to me.
Right.
But if you're building those relationships and they understand they listen to you and they understand your situation.
That's the ticket, is they have to listen to you.
First, you have the responsibility to build that relationship.
Correct,
So
yes.
that they will listen to
but
you.
real quick, the conflict between the county and the state, and the county that is unrepresented having nothing but state legislator to fall back on, is because there is not an authority having jurisdiction within that county. So that's one of those things that having an ESD or a MUD district, anything along a utility district, one of those can create that authority having jurisdiction where you can start creating the codes and permits and regulations under that authority having jurisdiction, so you don't have to rely on state anymore. You can adopt those state codes and enforce them at a local level.
And the district also doesn't have to be within the county. It can be
It can span.
multi-county. So if Lampasas Mills and Hamilton County wanted to go together and create a whole district, they could do that.
But Hamilton
just-
County Co-op, as an electric co-op, they have the ability to come in with utilities rules and enforce and change a lot of these things as well. So you just have to have an authority having jurisdiction for statewide issues, because this is popping up in counties all over the place. That's why I'm going to the Texas Railroad Commission and asking them to handle permitting, because right now we have TDCQ. They only handle water. Anything else outside of water quality, not their jurisdiction. We have ERCOT. ERCOT is gonna handle hooking up to utilities. Outside of that, not their jurisdiction. We don't have a jurisdiction over these 3 industries that can come in and require the permits, that can capture the costs, that can create the inspections, that can hold them accountable. Texas Railroad Commission does this for oil and gas because of the same issues we're facing in data centers, and they can do it for data center and high energy use as well. Now, we just have to remind Texas Railroad Commission what their jobs are, because a lot of people are just using it as a stepping stone to get to a higher office.
And that has been the tradition in Texas, that people have run for Railroad Commission looking to move forward from there. And, I don't want to bash anybody in particular, but really,
We need industry experts in those roles.
we had a young, vibrant individual that was on the Railroad Commission that was innovative in the market, and we voted him out.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have the right name. Oh, did I say that? I don't remember who beat him, but.
I just need to say, we are over time,
Oh,
over our
sorry.
normal time. Do you all want to stay a little bit longer? I need to let the restaurant know, because, we said we were only gonna be here for a certain time. So I think we probably need to.
Freezing cold and but I do have a question, then, do you have a website where we can ask questions? Yes. Or a card?
I have a card, everything is wrote on it except my phone number, which is why I've never passed them out, but today I realized I didn't have any of my other cards, so I'm happy to give you my card with my cell phone number on it.
I was looking for a website, I'm not gonna bother you. Oh,
Yeah.
just tell it to us.
Or
You said you're on Facebook.
I'm on Facebook,
What is it? How do we find you?
Save Charlotte, and you will see that it is quite fiery. I started a lot of my advocacy under family law, and the last 3 legislative sessions have focused on child protection and judicial oversight. So I was a part of the group that helped change the SCJC laws this last year to protect Texas children. So you'll see that a lot of that is focused on child protection, and I'm a bit of a rebel rouser in that field.
So could you spell that just so I can?
Yes, ma'am. Save Charlotte, SAVE.
Oh, save.
Oh,
We got it wrong. Save Charlotte, CHAROL.
My name is Kaitlan Ross. I do have a page from my run for RPT chair. I will try to get more data center stuff isolated over to the Kaitlan Ross for RPT chair page, and I'll rename that so that y'all have a resource where you don't have to deal with my child rebel rousing side.
How do you spell Charlotte?
CHARLOTTE.
Okay.
no, I'm going to.
Education is the answer, educate people,
And that's,
right?
I teach a lot on public information requests, on accountability for local government, on child protective measures. This next legislative session is gonna be a hodgepodge between child protective measures that we're still carrying forward from the last 3 sessions, in addition to the energy regulation and data center regulations moving forward.
What about these data centers being involved in surveillance of the population? What about the data centers being involved with digital twinning? Do you understand when you create a digital twin that,
Absolutely.
that the people can affect electronically your physical body? They can affect your mental attitude. They can cause you to commit suicide.
So this is the main surveillance method. And I've had this question many times, but the agreements and owner agreements and usage agreements that you sign into every time you get on Facebook, you get on X, you get on TikTok, every time you get a new phone and you have to go through 15 pages and click that little box at the bottom, that is what is giving the surveillance permissions. The data centers are absolutely supporting that for the massive amount of data that is being gathered, but the permission comes from using those programs because you're either the buyer, the seller, or the product. If you're using a free service, you're the product.
I care about healthcare.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's bad for the people.
Absolutely.
I've looked up this issue. China has had depopulation from these data centers in China. They're putting them in the water, they're putting them in space, they're putting them in the desert. But-
China is also dealing with depopulation from some 90s policies, namely those one-child policies that are starting to catch up to them
Yeah,
at this point.
I understand all that, but you know, this is like mandatory data centers being pushed down our throats, just like mandatory vaccination. So the COVID vaccine was pushed down our throats, not with much disclosure, and everybody has to comply.
Not all of us. So I was on a project site where we organized 2,500 men and women to walk off the data center construction site, which was one of Bill Gates' data centers. And we told him that if he kept pushing for mandatory vaccines, he can build his own data center.
There you go.
So
There you go.
you can only be pushed as far as you can be pushed.
Did y'all enjoy it?
Yeah.
Very much.
So she is a resource. I'm glad you all were here this morning to hear her. She is available to you, and I think she can help guide our county. Like you say, if we get our things, if we get our direction from the state, then maybe she can help us to get where we need to go. I appreciate you, and I thank you. And we can always ask her to come back and speak to us again if you need to.
Thank you for coming.
She can let me know her information, and I can put it out to you later. I forgot to ask if anybody has any announcements, and I know we have